What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones is here. We've got the Super Bowl right around the corner in about another week. Kansas City against San Francisco, and who better to break it down? Plus, talking about the head coaching movement, the carousel in the NFL, former All-Pro, and of course, defensive back, and a great one with the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets. By the way, we are going to talk a little Jets today, just to kind of let you know as we, I know we're moving you around a little bit in coverage here and there, my good friend
Yeah.
James Hasty. But James, always good to touch base with you, my friend. And hey, you've got to be excited, right? You see your franchise Kansas City back in the Super Bowl, looking to repeat after beating the Eagles last year. I thought the AFC and the NFC championship games, they were extremely compelling from certain standpoints, and we'll get into the NFC in a moment. But how about from the AFC side? Just the Kansas City, I thought, showing everyone once again, hey, you know what? Our run is not over. Keeping Baltimore in check, Lamar Jackson in check, and getting the win, and then of course advancing to Vegas. What was your overall thoughts with this Chiefs run and that performance in the title game?
Well, first of all, you got to give credit to the Ravens. I mean, they're diving over the end zone, fumble into the end zone scenario away from possibly being in the Super Bowl. But we all know that defensively, guys are always looking for opportunities to knock the ball out of guys' hands when they're trying to stretch the ball over the goal line. It's a known fact that occurs. So kudos to the Chiefs for being on the spot to recover that fumble. And hats are off to the Ravens for, a good season. But when you look at the play calling and the things of that sort that took place in that game, the Chiefs by far and away had the best coaching staff, the best personnel as well. And so, the end result did not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up. I mean, they turn around and they don't even run the football. I mean, think about that. They don't even run the football. I think you had 8 rushes, if you will. I don't even think they're considered design RPOs with Lamar Jackson, 16
Right.
total. You take them away, they didn't run the football. They gave up too many big chunk plays. Travis Kelce had a field day. Mahomes was ripping them apart against that soft coverage. I just thought that's a bad loss for Baltimore. As much as I give credit to Kansas City, veteran team, but man, you fight so hard to get that top seed and to get home field advantage. And this is why I don't really get into this whole, when we start talking about MVP, all well and good in the regular season. I'm just not highlighting this regarding Lamar Jackson. Playoffs are a different animal, man. Like, I mean, we've seen it, right? How many great regular seasons have we had? And then all, right?
How many more do we need to see? Because we know ultimately guys change up their whole philosophy in the playoffs. Teams are able to focus on that one opponent for a whole, a whole 2 to 3 weeks in advance of them playing the game. So you know that they're going to be prepared for you. And time again, we see, younger, inexperienced guys not understanding and knowing what to do in those big moments. Heck, we're seeing guys that have coached a while who may not have been in those type of situations in their career until that moment, and they don't know what to do. So, you have to give credit to guys that know what to do in the big moments, don't panic, and keep their players in a calm, cool, collective type of fashion, and they go out and they're able to execute because this is what they're so accustomed to doing. And yes, I just feel like the advantage was going into that game was the Chiefs because of that experience. And unfortunately for the Ravens, that's what the end result was.
Yeah, going back to the point you just brought up about coaches maybe being overwhelmed by the moment. Listen, it's now a week since the NFC Championship game. Everyone's going to go back, classic Monday morning quarterback, and they're going to look at the decisions for Dan Campbell, not once, but twice to go for it on 4th and 2. The old heads will say what they say. The new school thinking with the analytics got an opportunity to go up 17 and, reading the room, so to speak, understanding the situation where you're at, right? NFC Championship Lions, they don't go together. You're on the road. You go up 17, maybe you're pinning your ears back defensively. You're forcing San Francisco to do something they don't want to do offensively. I did not have a problem with it as much as other people did first of all, the kid Reynolds has to make the catch. The second 4th down play, bad throw by Goff. It was a blow up design. Okay, fine. But you had the fumble. You had the drop. You had the pick that should have been intercepted. That Ayuk made the play. You didn't down the ball in the 1 yard. You had a plethora of opportunities, right? But there
Don't
is
forget
that
the Nick Bolton interception if he doesn't have that cast on his hands, right? Okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But there's
Mm-hmm.
in my heart of hearts, and I hate hedging like this, there's also the part of me that goes back to, I know this is who Campbell is. You want to do that in September and October against the Bears or Minnesota, have at it. But man, 3-score game on the it's tough, man.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies went back and forth debating, arguing, and I'm like, this is just who he is. He was never the fear going in was Shanahan going to get too tight, or was Campbell going to be overly aggressive? We saw one of those questions answered. You're watching this game. I mean, what are you thinking when he goes for 4th down twice?
Well, it was in the 4th quarter, if I'm correct, when he went for it the second time. And
correct.
I think it was about 8 minutes and 40-something seconds to go. And I'm saying to myself, why is he going for this? Because to me, you take the points, and I'm going, okay, so Dan Campbell knows he has a reputation, and he clearly wants to live up to the reputation, which is, I go for it on 4th down. But this one didn't justify going for it on 4th down. You take the 3 points because it's still early in the 4th quarter, and there's really, forget the analytics, there's really no mathematical reason to go for it, because there's so much risk involved with going for it if you don't make it. Take your 3 and live to finish up the game, but or fight another day, as they might say. But for him to not understand that there's really no reasoning behind with that much time in the 4th quarter to go for it, but because you've done this thing and everyone expects you to go for it, you go for it. It didn't make sense. And as a former player, I would have thought that he knows and understands how tough it is to get there, and then to kind of not take advantage of the opportunity may speak to why he didn't win a Super Bowl as a former player. Because again, if you have those experiences of doing that, then you know how important it is to take advantage of those opportunities in those moments.
Yeah, I mean, he said afterwards, and I think we're prisoners in the moment. Everything's kind of raw when it comes out that, hey, we don't know if we're going to get back there, which almost strengthens the argument, the case for, well, then why did you even go for it? But you said it, as a former player, you've been in a lot of playoff games. You've been in title games as well. If that's who he is, if that's who your coach is during the regular season, are you sitting there on the sidelines thinking, yeah, man, this is who we are? Or I don't know, what's running through your mind? We're fans. We can sit back and say, well, yeah, we can crunch numbers. We've got that opportunity to do that because we're sitting at home, we're watching the games in a relaxed setting where there's not chaos, right? So we're a little more liberal when it comes to the thinking. But as a former player, are you backing the guy, or maybe in your heart of hearts saying, man, let our defense just, do what we need to do possession for possession. Let's just force San Fran to do something they don't want to do. Let's go up by 17.
Now, and let me back up and correct you on it. Never got a chance to play in a title game.
I'm sorry, divisional game, divisional playoff. Yes. Pardon me.
First round home field, but didn't get past that. And so as a former player and somebody that's been through that situation, you never want to put it on the field goal kicker, right? But this was not a case of that. This was a case of, give me a little bit more of a lead if I'm a defensive player on that unit. Give me a little bit more of a lead. Let me go back here and catch me an interception or two, and let's get out of here, right? So that's what my thought process is. Just keep padding the lead so that they are forced to throw the ball, and now we can go out and make some plays, and who knows, maybe run one back, but give us a chance. Don't take that out of our hands. And then momentum, just not forget the factor that momentum plays in a football game. When you lose that down, when you throw that incomplete pass, now they're excited. Now they're pumped up. Now they smell blood in the water, if you will. And so now here they come, and they've got a bunch of energy with them. And so if you take the points, they know and I know if we can keep them in bounds, right? Make them burn those timeouts and keep everything in front of us, we've got a great chance to win. And so, yes, man, I think being in those situations, and I'm sure Dan in his playing days had some of those experiences as a former player, not getting to the Super Bowl. You can't, you know, he doesn't have as much experience as a head coach, obviously, but you got to go back into and harken on those experiences as a former player and say, hey, you know what? It's too hard to get here. It's so hard to get there, man. And you have an opportunity to add to that lead. And, you know, like he said, nothing is promised after that game. You might not ever get there again.
Yeah, and thank you for correcting me. You're reverting back to 95. You guys were 13-3 and lost to the Colts, right? I believe in the divisional round.
And who was the quarterback? Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh. Sure, that was the year that they played the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship.
There you go.
With the Hail Mary. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's man, I'll tell you though. Man, I'm racking my brain over it because I get the analytics, 4th and 2, and by the way, too, it hasn't really brought up as I thought it would be, as you know, with some consistency here with their kicker. I mean, perhaps he just didn't have confidence in the kicker, but there was other things that went wrong, right? They brought in a couple kickers, but you know, burning that timeout late in the game, down 2 scores. I don't know, but to your point, you go up 17. Different animal. You get the incompletion. Game. As soon as San Francisco scores and you get the ball back, what happens? You fumble. The very next, you know, the first, it's like that. Have you ever had a game like that where, you know, it's just snowball effect?
Yes, absolutely. And you can't do anything to stop it. It's the most helpless feeling of all, you know, because you can't do anything to stop that momentum, you know?
Yeah.
I think we played the Raiders, I want to say in 2000, and we got out to a 17-0 lead. And literally the winner of this game, if I'm not mistaken, would go on to the playoffs. Okay. And we had a 17-0 lead in the first half. And we lost that game. And so, you know, you just don't take anything for granted, you know?
Yeah, you can. I mean, and that's why they always say you never take your foot off the gas. I mean, if you can put up points, you put up points. Coaching carousel, some of the movement. Washington hires defensive coordinator Dan Quinn as their new head coach. First, I want to get your reaction to that because obviously we saw what he did with Dallas aside from the game against Green Bay. But his bugaboo in Atlanta was the defense. I think they might have to draft a quarterback. They have the 2nd overall draft pick. You look at their numbers. We'll get into where does it, you know, mean for Eric Bieniemy going forward. But how about the thought of Quinn right now as a Commander's new head coach?
I don't think you can really make an argument to say that wasn't a good hire. I think Dan Quinn has shown, you know, his body of work is worthy of another opportunity. For me, it's going to boil down to who that offensive coordinator is, right? Because if you look around the league, the coordinators it's a shortage of them. There's a shortage of good ones, right? They're taking guys that have never been play callers and trying to turn them into coordinators, and it's just not going to work. And so for Dan, and being that he's one of the guys that's last to sign, there's slim pickings out there right now for offensive coordinators. So where do you go? Do you go down to the college level? You know, I think there's some serious consideration that needs to be given to, yes, if they're going to draft Caleb Williams, which I would fully expect they would draft him. Then you've got to have offensive coordinator that can really work and develop Caleb Williams into a heck of an NFL coach, a player, should I say. So I that's the hire that I'm waiting to see is that coordinator.
Yeah, so I think Holt signed with the Titans. Kingsbury is expected to sign with the Raiders. Kellen Moore with the Philadelphia Eagles. They also went the Vic Fangio route with defensive coordinator. Yeah. But I looked at the stats offensively for Washington under Bieniemy, 19 points. They averaged 25th in league, 15th when it came to passing yards, 27th. They didn't run the ball a lot this year. And then 25th points for. And you look at Pritchard still, the quarterback's coach. Bieniemy's under contract for 2024. Is it safe to say anytime a franchise hires a new head coach, most likely he's going to jettison the coordinators respectively, or he wants to bring in his. I mean, I feel like we always come back to Bieniemy. We always come back to he wanted to get right out of Andy Reid's shadow in Kansas City.
Yeah.
He goes to Washington. Hal starts to put up some big numbers, but they've had a bunch of issues defensively. They trade off two of their best young players, and this is where we're at right now. I mean, is he going to be odd man out?
I think there's a great likelihood that could be the case, which would be hugely disappointing to see that happen, right? I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going back to Kansas City. But then again, if they win the Super Bowl, do you really want to bring them back, right? Or do you want to keep the nucleus of people that you have and don't want to interrupt that nucleus? So I don't know if Eric's going to be given an opportunity, but if he is given, I would hope it would come from Dan Quinn, because he understands that personnel. Obviously, he's got some relationships with some of the coaches over there on the offensive side of the ball, like Pritchard, and I think that might make good sense. With Dan running that defense and Eric Bieniemy running that offense, yes, there needs to be more commitment to the running game. I think Robinson was highly underutilized this past year. But for the most part, if you've got Tavita Pritchard and Eric Bieniemy running that offense, you still need to bring in an offensive line coach there that can shore up that front, because that's where a lion's share of their problems were offensively, was on that offensive line. If you can keep Eric Bieniemy and Tavita Pritchard and find a good old line guy, and Dan Quinn as the head coach and defensive play caller, and I understand that they may be bringing Joe Witt Jr. over as well. So now Joe Witt obviously knows the schemes that Dan Quinn runs, so more than likely Dan won't call the plays and Joe Witt will call the plays. Now I think you've got a heck of a staff and an organization that has a legitimate shot to make a run at the playoffs.
Do you think the NFL right now, with the franchise owners and these GMs, and really more or less the owners, they want coaches who will defer, meaning they don't want the Belichicks anymore, where I have to have all the control, right? I have the final say, I have all the control. They maybe want guys that are a little more open to criticism or open to getting feedback from their coaching staff, because I'm wondering why Belichick, I was curious why he would even want to interview with Atlanta. I was thinking maybe because it's a weak division. There were some, reports. I don't think they can really be substantiated that the Eagles were going to make a call to Belichick, but he's going to be on the outside looking in. Obviously, he's not going to be head coach next year in the NFL. He might take a year off, but I'm wondering, in your experience or just your thoughts, do you think they're looking, these owners and these GMs now are saying, hey, we want a guy that's going to come in and just be a little more receptive and really want, not to, have all the groceries and cook the meal all by himself, as Parcells once said.
Yeah, and I think you said it, but Bill Parcells is the one that basically coined the phrase. And so now what you're seeing is the league is no longer in that mode, right? They're no longer in that mode where one guy makes all the decisions, right? And when you look at Atlanta, you've got Arthur Blank and then you've got Rich McKay. And with bringing in a Bill Belichick, how does that power dynamic restructure? And most organizations now don't want to tear it all down for one individual, right? They kind of like what's going on with their infrastructure, and they don't want to have to tear this thing apart just for the sake of one person. And so, and unfortunately, that's probably what you would have to do if you're going to hire Bill Belichick. And many just really aren't committed to starting all over, if you will, right? Especially with Bill up there in age. I think many for that reason. Now, if Bill was 10, 15 years younger, they probably would be open to it. But you're looking at a couple year window. Obviously, he's got a couple years worth of wins that he needs to put together to break the record. So give yourself 2 seasons, perhaps. He's 15 wins away. So that's what but is it worth it? And I don't think many organizations decided, hey, when you want to look at your entire structure, is it worth it? And I just don't think it was worth it at the end of the day.
You and I talked about this during the season, with the Eagles starting off 10-1 and then losing 6-7, really the no-show against Tampa Bay in the playoffs. And We saw what happens with their coordinators, their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, right? Heads will roll, heads will tumble. They go out, they bring in Kellen Moore, they go out and bring in Fangio. I said this the other day. I was on the record, to me, Nick Sirianni's a lame duck coach. I mean, it's just, I don't know how you would think he isn't. I feel as though it's like, you're young and your old man gives you that bicycle and he's going to allow you to kind of go up and down the driveway. But as soon as you fall, all of a sudden you have to stay right where he's at and he's got to watch you. I feel that's exactly what the Eagles are doing with Sirianni right now. And I keep going back and I have this argument over and over with my friends that are Eagles fans and even some of my media guys. I'm like, if that's the case, then why did they even bring him back if they don't trust him to build the proper and the right staff around him?
That is a great question, because we all know that before Sirianni was hired, Kellen Moore interviewed for that job, right? And so if I'm Sirianni, I have to be looking over my shoulder, because if we get out slow in the first month, right, I already know Kellen Moore is going to be the interim, right? Or Vic Fangio, for that matter, could be but I already know I'm out of here. And so, yeah, it must be a very difficult experience to have to know that there's people that are here that are intended to replace you, and yet you're okay with it. I get it. He makes $7 million a year and he's got a family, so he's got to do what he needs to do. But to your point, I mean, he's definitely a lame duck. I'm not sure why Kellen Moore is believed to be a great play caller, because we've seen his body of work now for a couple of different organizations. And there's nothing there. There's no there. And so why are we kidding ourselves with Kellen Moore? We've seen this movie before. So the only explanation I can come up with is maybe they want to go ahead and give him an opportunity to be the interim, or maybe Vic, but I would guess Kellen more than likely, and he's younger, and they go that direction. But I think they made an offer to him that they didn't think he would accept, and surprisingly enough, he accepted it. And now, everyone's going to be waiting to see what happens in September. I mean, he's on a month-to-month like Mike is down here.
That's you've been with her for 10 years, ask her to marry, and then all of a sudden she says yes, and you're thinking to yourself, oh shit, what do I do now?
she accepted. Right,
it's fascinating point you bring up, because you're right. If you were a player, so you can control if they're bringing in, if they're drafting a DB, if they're drafting a younger player, you can almost control, aside from salary and incentives and last year, the contract stuff, go out and play, go out and ball and keep this kid on the bench. Head coach, you can only control so much when you think about it, because at the end of the day, it is your job to get the players to play and to execute. And I equate it to, if you're a veteran quarterback, you draft a kid, hey, as long as you play well, you don't have to look over your shoulder. But the point that you brought up, and I just kind of jotted this down, is, what if their thinking is, man, we didn't think he was going to just kind of go along with this. All right, we're bringing him back for the synergy. The players, are comfortable with him, which, by the way, can we squash that? As a former player, what does it really mean when you hear they love playing for this guy?
Maybe they understand the power of social media, and they understand the influence that they have as far as weight. But we all know when the play is called, the last thing they're thinking about is Nick Sirianni, right? They're thinking about themselves and their family, right?
Yeah.
And Nick's a great guy, but they're not playing for Nick when they cross those lines, right? They're playing for themselves and their family. And yes, Nick unfortunately has to take the brunt of what the outcome is, right? Good or bad. But no, they're not playing for Nick Sirianni.
No. Playing for themselves, playing for that check. You're right. Playing for their livelihood and their family. Lastly, I do have to ask you about your former team that drafted you many moons ago, the New York Jets.
Boy, they've been in the news, huh?
If you have a head coach,
30 people are saying things about what's going on within the organization. That's a lot of people.
That's 32.
30 people. That's 30 people are saying these things. Yeah.
If your head coach is telling other coaches, come forward and don't leak information, and it's being reported that, you don't like the negative press. Come on, man, you're coaching in New York. So no matter what happens, the tabloids, the Post, Newsday, the Daily News, the radio stations, they're going to criticize you. You shouldn't be texting a former WFAN sports talk show host who's a fanatical Jet fan. At that moment, you're giving away the secret sauce. They should have cut ties with Robert Saleh. Aaron Rodgers is running the show. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, who had a cup of coffee and 4 snaps, talk about stuff being leaked. Come on, man. Like, I feel, and I hate saying this, but who's to say the Jets can't turn around after all this comes out and says, you know what? We're just going to go in a different direction. Thanks, Robert. Because obviously he's not a very good head coach. He could be a really nice guy, but he's not fit to be a head coach. And the more stuff comes out, the more stuff's being leaked. It's like a broken franchise right now. You don't know what you're going to get from Rodgers. You have no idea if he's coming back 100%. He might be a ploy. Like, he teased the Jet fans. That's all he did. He kept saying, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back, because he wanted to shine. He wanted the spotlight. He wanted to keep going on McAfee. And then he gets bailed out because the doctors basically don't pass him. So he can sit there and say, well, I wanted to play. I wanted to be the hero. But you know what? The Jet physicians, the Jet doctors, no one gave me the green light. So, I mean, listen, you played for this franchise, so you know.
Well, this all starts at the top, right? It's what Woody wants, and that's what it's going to be. And everybody, are lame ducks right now, waiting to see the health of Aaron Rodgers. And obviously, please, no one insinuate that the offensive line doesn't need to be tore down and rebuilt, because Aaron Rodgers, not even Aaron Rodgers, can save the Jets season if they don't get that offensive line fixed. So I know what Joe does. Joe needs to do is he needs to go call Aaron, talk to Aaron about who some of those folks are, because we know that Aaron's pretty much calling the shots over there, and figure out what he wants to do regarding that offensive line. But when we start talking about Robert Saleh, we knew that Robert didn't have the experience. I'm sure Woody knew that Robert didn't have the experience, and that in a market like New York, it takes a special person that has a great amount of knowledge and wisdom in the game, not just in knowing how to talk to the press. I give him credit for that. He does a great job at his press conferences. But this city, and New York I should say, requires you to have thick skin.
Yeah.
And you need to know the game of football
100%.
Because these fans are extremely knowledgeable. And then you add the Giants fans into the mix, and it just heightens the intensity and the pressure to get it done, because the success the Giants have had over the years. So, yeah, this is something that they need to be looking at long before they bring him in there and say, okay, let's look at really his body of work and see, does this fit? Because we knew all the hype that came on the sideline, and all the fist pumps and all that good stuff. And I love his energy. I think it's genuine. I don't think he's fake about his energy. But the knowledge of the game, you can't shortchange that, man.
Yeah.
It's going to show up, especially in the NFL. You don't know when, but it's going to show up, whether you should challenge something, whether you should go for it on 4th down, player substitutions, personnel packages, all that stuff plays a major part, and the head coach is directly involved with that stuff. And you can't put a price tag on experience, man. And, big moments, you got to know what to do in those big moments. And if you've never been through it, you're not going to know what to do. I guarantee you, going back to Dan Campbell, I guarantee you he'll kick it next time, right? Because he has the experience now of what happened in the last game he coached. Same thing with Robert Saleh. You're going to have to live with this inexperience, because you knew going in he didn't have any. So now you're going to have to live with it.
Yeah, I mean, and God forbid if the Lions find themselves in the same spot and he goes for it again. I mean,
no, it won't happen.
I'm not even letting him on the plane.
I think he tried to come to tears in that press conference, but it'll be worse than that if he does that again.
Yeah, but then you're also saying change who you are, or at least pick and choose your spots, I should say, right? Understanding that.
Yeah. I like that last option. Pick and choose your spots, harken back onto those experiences that you had as a player and as a coach now, and try to make sure you correct those poor decisions,
I mean, I remember when the Giants played the Niners in 90 and Hostetler was the backup, and that game was just a brutal NFC championship game. Marshall was able to knock out Montana, but the Giants just could not punch it in. They were settling for bar field goal after field goal. And then late in the game, I think Madden brought up the point where, Parcells, he'll pull out all the stops, and they faked the punt to Gary Reasons, and they were able to get a field goal, get the fumble off Roger Craig, and then kick the field goal late to win it 15-13. I mean, I don't know if the game is changed in that regard, but I think there are times where you say, we got to try to catch them off guard. But if your track record is, we know on 3rd and 9, we're going to run it. Why? Because we're already thinking about 4th down.
Oh, why are you running on 3rd and 9? Because you've let everybody know.
That's my point.
We all know.
Yeah. And then people will, I mean, I've had this argument again with one of my buddies who covers the NFL. And he's like, yeah, but you know what? I'm thinking to myself, you don't want me to have an opportunity at 4th down. You would rather me kick it. And I was like, I don't know, man, because to me, 4th and 5 is not like 4th and 1, 4th and 2. Like 4th and 5 is, to me, it's almost like a 2nd or 3rd down. I'm not talking options wise. I'm talking that it's hard to convert that. I don't know if you consider it, a 4th or a 3rd and long per se, maybe 6 or 7 yards. Point being, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, if I can't get a yard, that's on me. I just felt, going back to Campbell, and I don't want to belabor the point.
Okay.
How do you just catch the ball if you're Reynolds, right? And we're probably not even having this conversation.
So what you're telling me is they went the whole season.
Yeah.
And the play that they could draw up was a play to Reynolds.
Yeah.
Everything is on the line.
If you're going to go for it, maybe you come up with, I mean, look, would you have tried to catch him off guard with a run?
I'm thinking if there's 2 people that I'm going to throw the ball to, it's going to be Laporta
or Brown.
Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my when I look at my play call sheet, I've got my play call sheets for certain players. Obviously, I got down and distance calls, but then I got plays for those specific players. And I would have hoped that you would have looked into that area of your game plan and said, Laporta and Brown, those are the guys I have to get the ball to. I'm going to make this real easy on Jared. I'm not even going to give him the option to throw it to Reynolds.
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to know if it's not within the catch radius that they can go make that catch anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And I got full confidence in Laporta and Brown. So I just questioned the idea to throw it to Reynolds.
Yeah.
We all know that he's not a number 1 receiver for a reason, and it's because he doesn't always catch the ball. So give yourself a higher probability of throwing it to someone that might make a great catch for you.
So then you must have been going nuts when you saw the Bills direct snap it to Hamlin on a fake punt.
I lost my mind, man. I was like, I mean, everybody knows between the 40s.
Yeah.
That's the fake territory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Between the 40s. So they were waiting on that. Now, mind you, they only had 10 people on the field, apparently, but they're still waiting on it. Yeah. And why does that matter? Because these guys are not blockers that are on the punt team, right? So we know that they're not going to be able to block this thing correctly, right? So no, I lost my mind when Sean went for that. I thought that was a horrible decision.
Did you ever play in a game or even the playoffs where, and you don't have to say it, but you're sitting there and you're watching. I mean, did you when your offense was out on the field, were you guys just doing your own thing, on the side? So you really weren't, engrossed in that. If all of a sudden, what are they doing going for it on 4th?
No, we're definitely talking. We're watching the big board and we're talking and saying, why did we fake that? What are we doing? Let's go defense. Let's go. We got to get back out there now. So no, we're literally doing it while we're running back onto the field, that kind of scenario. But you can best believe we're talking about it. Like what the hell was that? Absolutely.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
I can just
Yeah.
imagine sitting there, especially if you just force a 3 and out and you got to turn right back around.
And you got to turn right back around. You're like, what the hell happened? You know, what are we doing? Yeah. That initial surprise is, you can't hide it, you know?
Was Marty considered a conservative head coach?
Oh, extremely,
Too
extremely
conservative
conservative.
was the knock on. I mean, I always liked Marty Schottenheimer.
Mm.
I think he got a bad rap because he had so many great teams in years, and you just want to get over the hump. But was too conservative?
I don't know if the word is tutu, but Marty believed in running the football.
A lot.
There's no question about it, and he did it well, right, in the regular season. But that, when you're doing that so often, right, what's not going to be in tune is your passing game.
Passing
Your
game.
timing's not going to be down, right? So you're putting yourself in a pickle when you need to throw it because timing is off.
Yeah.
So that's the downside to that commitment to the run game. I mean, obviously, we like to see an offense be more balanced, and I think today's time is more throwing the football than anything else. But absolutely, in those days, Marty's idea was, hey, we're going to run ball and we're going to play solid defense. And unfortunately, if we got behind the sticks, then that advantage went to the other team.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, when you're predominantly just a kind of a wear them down, ground and pound, right? I mean, and now in the NFL, you have two backs that can kind of get it done, right? You get the big back, and then you get the change of pace back. It is
Well,
amazing,
you
though.
do you really though? Because a lot of
Well,
these guys, they're not committed to the run game, and
well,
so
to your point, yes and no. Like I think there are some teams that still implement that. Um, the Eagles, for instance, they had Swift, who I think is your change of pace back. They went out, they got Penny. They didn't give him any type of carries. They had Boston Scott. The Giants drafted a young kid. They had Saquon. I guess, yeah, you're right.
mm,
Maybe 10 years ago, I should say.
yeah, go
Maybe
about
10
10
years
years ago.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the backs are not utilized like they once were. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, think about it. I'm He can kill me either out of the backfield, in motion. I can flank him out. I can bubble screen. I can get a screen. I can get him in the slot. To me, he's a different type of back that, say, a Henry is, a power back, a Saquon is, a Hunt is, a Chubb is, those kind of guys. The Giants used to implement the 1-2 kind of punch,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
with Jacobs and obviously
Hmm.
Bradshaw and Ward and the
Hmm.
likes. I just think it's such a underutilized position, but I also think, and you tell me, it's the NFL, it's a passing league. They just
It's a passing league. There's no question about it. It is absolutely a passing league. We all have to take our hat off to Christian McCaffrey. He's a heck of a running back, but we're not going to see that too often in the National Football League, where a guy like that leads the league in rushing from week 1 to week 18 every week. He had led the league in rushing. That's a
yeah,
phenomenal statistic. No, I don't believe we're going to see that. One, because they don't value that position anymore as much as they used to, and so I think you'll see them have some serviceable guys, but no real big money guys anymore at that position because of the limited use that they feel guys bring, and no one, be honest. Christian McCaffrey is a rare find when a
right.
guy never comes out the game and plays from week 1 to week 18 the way he does. It's just, you
Yeah.
just don't see it. Guys get dinged up all the time at that spot, and this guy's been incredibly durable over his career thus far.
Yeah, and it's a given anytime he's right near the goal line. I mean, you can appreciate it. Reminds me of Marcus Allen, right? I mean,
Yeah,
short
yeah.
yardage late in his career. He went from, I mean, an all-time great back, but it's amazing how he uh, just kind of evolved as a running back late in his career, where, okay, 3, 4, 5 yards in, goal line situation.
You know who's getting the ball. You know who's
Yeah,
getting the ball. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And Marty may pull no punches. He'd pull out whoever was in there just to make sure
yeah,
that Marcus, because I never seen the guy get knocked backwards, man. Never
yeah.
saw it. Mhm.
And lastly, before I let you get out of here, with everything you're doing with CPAS and with the collecting and the data, I'm wondering now, do you kind of go through and look where some of these vacancies are with some of these teams, and in your mind,
Yeah.
you say to yourself, hey, this is where you kind of, I don't want to say plug and play, but
Right. Yeah, you do a lot of plug and play. And, again, it speaks to the reason for the Chiefs' dominance is because a lot of these teams do such a poor job of selecting the right coaches, right? Because they're into this clique type of deal where this guy is coming from a Shanahan or a McVay or somebody that knew him from back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, that maybe worked with these guys. And so that's all it's about. It's all about relationships. It's not about finding good coaches. And that's why I think we're going to continue to see the Chiefs, as long as Andy's there, they're going to be right there because their staff is incredibly well constructed, and they're not gonna beat themselves when it
right.
comes to coaching. The players may make some errors and some mistakes here or there, but you got the best player in football throwing the ball. So, you've given yourself a great chance of success for a long time because these folks over here, they still don't know what they're doing. I mean, just the construction of some of these staffs, man, are horrendous. I will say that Carolina's doing a decent job. Obviously, the Bills are doing a great job as well with reconstructing their staff and moving some guys around. But for the most part, there's quite a few teams that are really struggling to find coordinators, and then the replacement, if the guy's getting elevated, then finding a replacement for that person that's being elevated. It's some serious gaps in talent out there right now.
Yeah. And we see it because there's so many openings, right? I mean, it's just crazy how many head coaches and coordinators, and if the head coaches don't go, they got to fire somebody. So the coordinators have to go. If the coordinators don't go, they got to fire position coaches. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. And ultimately, I think to Tom Brady's point, I think we're going to continue to see the level of the game decline because the guys aren't being taught correctly, right? And until they can be taught correctly, it's going to be some real bad brand of football that we'll be forced to watch. But that's where we're at right now.
yeah. And I can tell you right now, it's February. I'm not looking forward to the Giants. But
Well, what are they going to get a coordinator? Speaking of, what are they going to go with Jerome Henderson, or what are they going to do?
I don't. There's like 4 or 5 names out there. That's the other problem, right? You got a coach in Daboll who's fiery guy, and the antics and Wink Martindale, whenever it gets leaked out. I can say Daboll's probably a lame duck too, man. Especially if
I was going to say that.
But nobody wants to hear that. Belichick has an affinity for the Giants. Take a year off, refresh. You got Daboll there, and things imploded this year. And after a while, if you're winning, I can live with the antics. But when you're losing, it's not a good look. And it's slim pickings right now because their options at coordinator are dwindling very fast.
And so who do you think is the front runner right now? Do you have any sense of who that might be?
I mean, I don't know who I wanted. I wanted Mike Grable.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
thought that
based off of what?
Because I looked at him and I know his head coaching record, his stint with Tennessee. I want a cultural attitude adjust. I think the players, because they really like Wink, even though some of them kind of came out and said, McKinney with a couple things. I just think Grable would have gave him that attitude, that toughness. And I'm not saying they're not a tough unit, but I'm also not getting all giddy in the fact that they caused all these turnovers late in the season when yet they weren't able to get to the quarterback. I would like to see some of these guys work with, say, like a Thibodeau, right? Show him a couple of different moves here and there, right? He really doesn't have any type of moves getting to the quarterback. He's just going straight forward. They've got young DBs, they've got young corners. And I was kind of over Martindale because he was blitzing every single solitary play. And to me, I get it if you can get to the quarterback. If you're not getting to the quarterback, then you're exposing your corners, man. And
Hmm.
they played well at times this year, but I also saw enough where they got beat over the top, and I just had enough. And that's because he was blitzing. And sometimes he was only rushing 3 or 4. And I'm like, what are we doing? So yeah, I got tired of that after a while.
Well, I understand the whole blitz overdoing it. You know,
Yep.
I can understand that. As a player, I'd like to have a little more balance, but I'm more high. I'm more favored towards the blitzing because I want to see the ball get out their hands, and I like to see the quarterback get hit and not be under duress, as opposed to just sitting back there and them just dinking and dunking us apart. So no, I get what you're saying. There are some guys out there. Now I asked about Vrabel because Vrabel's only been a coordinator 1 year.
Yep.
So, you know, be careful what you ask for, right?
Yep.
Because he's been a linebacker guy,
Yep.
and then he was a coordinator 1 year with the Texans. They went 4-12, and then he got the job with the Titans.
Right.
So I haven't seen enough body of work to go, oh, okay, yeah, might be
Would
a
you
good
say the
option.
Titans, though, overachieved or underachieved under him?
Uh, I would say he didn't have a lot of options as far as personnel. Let
Yeah.
me just say that.
Okay.
He was
Fair
kind
enough.
of strapped without really having the players that he needed to be successful. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a non-answer on that one right now,
Okay.
right? But I certainly believe he deserves to be a head coach again.
W-
But a coordinator, probably not.
what
Probably not.
about what about the kid from Carolina, Ejiro?
Devereaux, what about him?
I mean, I think the Panthers blocked him from having an interview.
Yeah, I think Everett would be a great option as a coordinator for the Giants, but I believe that they're going to try to retain him down there in Carolina. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why I believe that they've done a good job down there, because when they were able to retain Everett, I thought that was a great move by them. So that staff is coming along, but there's some guys still out there that folks aren't talking about that really deserve an opportunity. Guy like Charles Burke over there with the Cincinnati Bengals. You don't know much about him, right? But Charles Burke is one of those guys that's going to be a heck of a D coordinator, and his body of work speaks for itself. So a guy like that is someone you should keep your eye on, because he was over there at Miami a few years
Okay.
ago with Brian Flores when Patrick Graham was a D coordinator.
There you
He was
go.
working on the secondary. Then of course Brian leaves. Charles goes to Cincinnati, and he's over there. He's doing a great job there. But Charles, to be quite honest, has called plays. He's been a coordinator at the college level and been a very good coordinator, but he's not getting that. He's not getting the buzz, the interest the way he should. But we grade him out as extremely a viable up and coming D coordinator. Heck, the guy will be a head coach here before you know it, because he's just that sharp, and he's really earned everything that he's gained. He's garnered over these years. So look for a guy like Charles Burke to be on the radar. Maybe not with the Giants, but
Right.
I'd be making some phone calls on his behalf if I was his agent.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's a good name. I'm definitely going to research that a little more. I I I just think you get to the point too where if you don't have the personnel, right? I mean, you can't sell me you got athletic guys getting to the quarterback, but you got to get to them, right? Just touching them doesn't do anything to me. And I know Thibodeau, I thought he played very well this year. I'd have to go back and look at every defensive snap or every time he was on the field to see if they doubled him. Did he make the impact that I need to see, basically? And
Well, if your benchmark is double-digit sacks,
then
then okay, good. He did what
right,
you want him to do.
right,
But we know that it's more than just that, right?
correct,
Dexter Lawrence lets you know the game is more than just that, because it truly impacts the game
right.
when he's out there. But do you get that all the time from other players? Because that it shouldn't be that one guy and then that's it. And then Thibodeau with double-digit sacks.
Yeah,
What is it? 10 or 11, 12
yeah,
sacks.
yeah,
You need another element
yeah,
to bring pressure when Thibodeau's on the
yeah,
opposite side. You need somebody, and you've got Dexter over the middle. You need another presence on the other side,
yeah,
and you just don't have that right now.
yeah,
And if you're going to be playing soft coverage, or if you can't play man to man, which matchups, let's be honest, was a problem. You guys couldn't match up because you weren't very comfortable playing man and up or off. And so now you make it very hard for Wink to call something when there's nothing that you really do well.
Right.
There's
But
nothing that you really do well.
That's my point. Like if I can get to the quarterback, I can mask a bad secondary. But if I'm trying to get to the quarterback all the time and I got a weak secondary and the guy's picking me apart, Banks is a good player. McKinney's a good player. They've got players. The kid Pinnock's a good player. But to your point, I'm a big believer in, and I've spoiled, man, because look at the linebackers they've had over, their franchise, the all-time great ones. And then look at the recent runs that they had 10, 15 years ago in the Super Bowl.
Well, the free agent pickup from the Colts was good this year.
Oh,
right?
Okereke, great player.
Yeah, great pickup. Yeah,
great player. But I want edge rushers.
You need another edge rusher.
Yeah,
I want edge rushers. Need another edge rusher. No,
and I need a whole offensive line and maybe a quarterback.
I do like the growth that we saw with Thibodeau, right? Because he started understanding how to set people up for certain moves. So he's evolving, right? Yeah. But you still need that other side to bring that pressure so that the guy can't get out the other way, right? Yeah. So until you do that, I think you're going to be seeing guys struggle on the back end because if you can't get your hands on people at the line, you can't slow them up. That means you need to play off. And we all know playing off is not the ideal way to play defense. You need to be up and able to challenge guys. And that's how you create pressure because the timing is all thrown off because of the disruption of the route. And now you got something. But if you're not disrupting anyone anywhere at any time, it's going to be a long season. And that's essentially what we saw.
And they don't have the offense if they're down 17 points. They're not Kansas City. They're not San Francisco.
Are they going to sign Saquon? What are they going to do there? Because I know they're supposed to be talking at the combine about maybe doing something. But what are they going to do?
Probably tag him again, which he doesn't want.
Yeah. Well, he knew that when he came back last year, right? If you go and you sign a deal and it doesn't say in there, you can't franchise me, then they're going to tag you.
Yeah, but here's the problem. When you have players basically come out and say they should have signed him first and then the quarterback, I don't want to hear that as a fan. Like, I don't want that coming out because the quarterback, we forget, played well when they made the playoffs last year. They went on the road. They beat Minnesota. He played extremely well. There were games I can pinpoint where Jones and Saquon both won games. But with Saquon, the way the backs are treated, hell, look what Cook, everyone was talking about Minnesota. What are you doing getting rid of Dalvin Cook? He goes to the Jets. They didn't use him. He bounced around. I think he signed with Baltimore. I mean, you're talking about 1,000-yard back 3, 4, 5 years in a row. The back position, we just talked about it, James. It's not, we're not at that NFL anymore. So for Saquon, as much as I think he's a great guy, a great team leader, when he's healthy, he's a great back. My concern is that the availability, man, and I just can't put all my eggs in one basket. And I understand what happens when you take him off the field. I get it. But I'm torn between it because when he plays and he's healthy, he can be a very, top 3, 4, 5 back. But yet when he's not healthy, it's like, here we go again. Like, and he took there were a lot of plays where I saw him on 3rd and short where he was taken off the field. And I'm like, what are we doing? Come on. You're supposed to be the guy that's carrying the ball 20, 25 times a game.
Availability is everything for me. And that's the problem that I have with Saquon is I don't know if he's going to be available every Sunday. And we just got through talking about Christian McCaffrey. Nowhere close in comparison in terms of durability. You just don't know. I mean, and so I don't know if I would even tag him because, I've seen and I understand his body work, but let's not forget Brian Daboll's a heck of a play caller, right? And he's a heck of a coach. So he should know how to replace someone, or he should have the ability scheme-wise to be able to replace a guy like a Saquon because this scenario is not going to continue to play out.
Who I would take?
It's going to end real bad.
Yeah, and you're right. It's going to end, and I kind of saw it going into the season. But if the Eagles don't work out something with DeAndre Swift, I would grab him and he was not utilized the right way in Philadelphia. I can have him out of the backfield. He's good against the blitz. He runs
he
hard.
just made the Pro Bowl. You think they're gonna not sign DeAndre Swift?
I'm hearing that he's not. I'm hearing that they're going to move on from DeAndre Swift.
Okay, well, that'd be a big loss.
I would grab him in a heartbeat.
I would too.
A heartbeat. And
I would
yeah,
too.
listen, the only ones we count on Sundays, priests and pastors, man. That's it. The availability is always there. So,
all right,
my friend. So next week, I'm gonna we'll break down the game and we'll get your thoughts. We'll kind of go in the trenches and we'll have a little fun with it. But always.
Hey, maybe we could go back and review some of these coaching staffs that have been put together and analyze and see who did what and who screwed up.
Well, we already got two teams.
we're gonna have something to talk about for sure with once these teams are all settled with their staffs.
Yeah, I want to do that.
It's going to reveal themselves. Wow.
Start doing some. We can start grading things out. I would love that.
Yeah,
Listeners would like that as well. So, all right, my friend. Appreciate a couple moments. Have a great week, and we'll do it again next week.
All right, Rich. Appreciate it, man.
All right.